easily infiltrated and, you know, broken apart if it's a genuine organization. So whether this is good or not good, I can't really tell you. I see a lot of people with a lot of very crazy signs, you know, which probably is counterproductive, you know, because the idea of this kind of thing, you know, is opposition has to make sense. If we look like crazy freaks, you know, they're going to take us as crazy freaks because that's what we want. Because the idea is to have, you know, people who have a normal 9-to-5 life, like people who scream, you know, with a megaphone, you know, I want anything to do with that. Because you know, our job is to win the hearts and minds of the people who have families, who wake up in the morning, go to work, come home. We want these people on our side.
So what is the story that you want them to know about the Bilderberg?
Well, I want them to understand, you know, separate fact from fiction. And unfortunately, there's a lot of mysticism about this, and most of it is wrong. And the reason that it's wrong is because people just copy and paste things from internet. Like, for example, yesterday I had, I don't know, 10, 15 people who sent me an apparent list from this year, only it wasn't this year's list, it was last year's list. You know, this is the kind of, you know, journalism. So my point is that, again, it's, you know, this is logical. You can explain this, which is one of the reasons, you know, 2 days ago I stood up in front of the European Parliament, in front of 200 people and 50 media.
Thank you for it.
You know, and I gave a historical speech in the European Parliament on Bilderberg, not because I'm a crazy freak, but because I can historically explain who and what these people are.
So who are they and what do they do?
It's a good question. You know, in the world of international politics, there are those who steer the events and those who react to the events. Well, the latter, you know, they're better known, they're greater in numbers, and seemingly more powerful. The real power rests with the former, at the center. You know, this better-known private organizations. I didn't say secret societies. Better-known private organizations. It's this group of people calling themselves the Bilderberg Group, which of course comes from the name of the hotel in the Netherlands, on the outskirts of the capital of the Netherlands, and I can't remember the capital of the Netherlands, Amsterdam, thank you. You know, in this little town called Oosterbeek, and that's why it's called the Bilderberg Group. And they were themselves, they call the aristocracy of purpose, on the best ways to, you know, to manage the planet. In other words, the creation of giant cartels, you know, more powerful than any nation on earth, destined to control the necessities of life for the rest of humanity. You know, apparently for our benefit in the long run.
But are they, what is their influence today? What are the sign of their influence?
Well, they have a lot less influence today than they did 40 years ago. Mainly because the really important, you know, influential Bilderbergers such as David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski and Henry Kissinger, they're just too old, they're too senile, and they're going to be dead before long. So their influence is, you know, very limited. And the new generation of Bilderbergers, the baby boomers, they're just too stupid to really, you know, to do anything to us. But the point is, again, the way they interact with other organizations. See, a lot of people think, you know, it's a pyramid and all, you know, evil eye. You have Bilderbergers, you have. But it doesn't work like that. It's not a pyramid. It has never been a pyramid, okay? Because, and there's a very practical explanation. If you're talking about a pyramid, if you get lucky, you can literally chop off the head, and then it's a headless organization. It doesn't work, you know, like president, you know, general director, you know, regional director. It's rather, you know, it's rather lateral. It's circular. You have Bilderberg, then you have the Council on Foreign Relations, you have the Trilateral Commission, you have think tanks, you have foundations, you have other lesser-known organizations, you know, and they're all kind of working together. But there's no one leader, and that's a very important thing to understand. But the decisions, for example, taken at one meeting, maybe 10 years later, or 8 years later, or 6 years later, you know, become law. And I'll give you a very good example of that. In 1992, Bilderbergers met in Evian in France, and they talked for the first time about the creation of the United Nations Army, you know, under the auspices of, you know, the United Nations. And then it took them 14 years to actually put this through. And in 2006, when they met in Canada, in Canada, on the outskirts of Ottawa, Canada's capital, you know, they actually discussed and more or less rubber stamped, you know, the whole idea. But if you look through these 14 years, how it actually worked, once it was put into motion in 1992, it was discussed the following year at Davos in 1993. Then in 1995, 1996 was the key point in the European elections. Then when the war in Kosovo became, you know, the front page news, everybody, especially the BBC, was talking about the need to create the Rapid Reaction Force, which was just, you know, your version, European version of the United Nations Army. And then that's, you see how it works? So it's like there's nobody, one individual who tells, you know, you go and kill somebody or you go and do this. It doesn't work like that. Only simple primitive minds could possibly think, and which is why one of the reasons you know, the New York Timeses of this world have never been able to discredit me, which is why, you know, I stand up in front of the European Parliament with 200 people and 37, you know, 50 media groups from 37 countries wanting to know what I talk about, because what I say physically makes sense.
Who is leading today?
Leading what? Well, it's a very good question. You know, it depends who you talk to. If you talk to, you know, strange people like David Icke, you know, he'll tell you that the Queen of England is, you know, some lizard creature from outer space. If you talk to normal people, you know,
what is your point?
My point of view is like, for example, you know, when they tell us that David Rockefeller and company are the world's wealthiest people, I can tell you for a fact that they're not. Rockefeller's wealth is measured in maybe $40–50 billion. You know, 2 weeks ago, I published a full-page article in El Mundo, which is a very important Spanish newspaper, explaining exactly what happens when the stock markets plummet and how, you know, powerful people unknown to anybody from behind the scenes can actually inject billions and trillions of dollars into the market to change, you know, the dynamic of that. And, you know, I included one document with that. It's a Krug German industrialist family, KRUPP. You know, in one bank account, this man has $112 trillion. And I have located over 3,000 of his bank accounts. So if in one bank account there's $112 trillion, you just have to count the zeros. You know, why do they tell us that David Rockefeller and you know, Bill Gates, why do they tell us that they're the wealthiest men in the world? Well, because they don't want us to know who the real wealthy people are. And the fact, you know, that, you know, every toilet cleaner in the world knows David Rockefeller's name obviously excludes David Rockefeller from being important.
So that's your thesis with the octopus, with your new book?
Well, in Octopus, you know what I do is you have the planners and you have the executioners. Well, Bilderberg would be like a certain level of executioners. Above them, there's other organizations, other secret societies, well, really secret because nobody knows who they are. And one of them is Octopus, although in the real world it's not called Octopus, it has another name. I just called it Octopus because I've been told not to call it by its real name. And it's a novel, although excuse me, although 80% of what I say in that novel is absolutely true. There's 5 different lines of, you know, investigative journalism, and each one of them could be a 300–400 page book. But again, I was told not to even think about publishing it as a journalism.
Do you think that politicians have any power left?
Well, you know, on the international stage, no. You know. You have the president of Greece, who is a member of Bilderberg, and he's being told what to do in his country. You have Zapatero, who's the president of this country, you know, who goes to this meeting and is being treated like, you know, some naughty, you know, 6-year-old boy. And he's a president. You may not like it. He's not, you know, he's not a chief of a tribe, African tribe. He's a president of a country, and he's being treated like, you know, a naughty little 6-year-old boy. Because, you know.
Why do you say that?
Well, because that's what my sources told me.
And what do they do to him?
Well, they don't hit him, that's for sure, but they certainly, you know, reject out of hand his proposals.
About what?
Well, the proposal, obviously, he came to today's meeting, aside from giving the opening address, which is a very normal thing in Bilderberg meetings for the president of the country, where the meetings are being held. He also took the opportunity, you know, a unique opportunity to convince this very powerful group of people, you know, that Spain has a future and this situation can be solved, because Bilderberg was saying, you know, get your house in order because we don't have the money to save you. You know, that's one of the things that they've realized. It's on the agenda, which we already have, is they realize that the $750 billion, aside from the fact that it's absolutely illegal what they did according to 1992 Maastricht Treaty, absolutely illegal. They simply don't have the money to do it more. You know, they need $800 trillion to do this.
So Zapatero came today and talked about his plan for Spain and he was rejected.
Well, it wasn't that he was rejected. You know, these people are polite. You have to give it to them. But, you know, but he certainly wasn't. Let's say they were cool to his proposals.
Who is inside? Is there Communist Strauss-Kahn? What can French personalities do about?
Well, Kouchner is certainly there. The president of AXA insurance company is there. I can't remember his name right now.
Castries?
Henri de Castries, exactly. He's there as well. And I have a list on my computer, but it's encrypted military computer. I need to decrypt it, and until I get to a secure internet location, I can't open it. So, but I'll have it tomorrow.
Christine Lagarde, is she?
I'm sure she is. She's always here.
So what are the other subjects they're going to discuss?
Well, there's 10 subjects on the agenda. One has to do with Greece, the other one has to do with Euro. The other one is a very interesting subject. It literally says, do we have the institutions to deal with the current crisis on the world stage? It's a very interesting question if you analyze it. Then another point deals with Afghanistan, you know, solutions and problems and solutions. There's only one thing Afghanistan and of any value, that's drugs. You know, and if you realize that drugs is the lubricant of the entire world economy, well, you know what these people are going to be talking about. One of the reasons you can't eradicate drugs is because drugs are all laundered through Wall Street, which is how, you know, it's always worked. You know, so imagine that.
So Afghanistan, institutions, Spain, Greece, euros, I guess. What else?
Euro. The last point on the agenda is alternative scenarios to the United States dollar, which is something they've been working for a very, very long time. They're trying to destroy the dollar because by destroying the dollar, all of the denominated credit is in dollars, you destroy the world economy. This is exactly what they want.
This is what they want to do.
One of the, well, they must destroy the world economy because again, you're talking about transfer of wealth. You see, if you go back to 1929, which was called the Great Depression, which really wasn't the Great Depression at all. It was simply a transfer of wealth. You know, money is not water; it doesn't evaporate. So if you and I lose it, somebody has to gain it. So you know, it has been more than proven over the past 70 years of history, you know, since the Great Depression, that what we've lost, our monies, our equities, our homes, our what little value we had, was actually taken over by the Lobes and the Cohns and the Rockefellers and the Chases. You know, in that sense, that's what the Great Depression was, a transfer of wealth. This is what this is, transfer of wealth. We'll lose, they gain.
So who's gaining?
Well, the same people who've been gaining all the time. Well, you and I lose because we have nothing. We had nothing, now we have nothing minus nothing, you know? And the Goldman Sachs and Morgans, and which, you know, for example, when I often talk about the royalty, be it English royalty or be it Spanish royalty, in the end, you know, the Queen of England, you know, the stupid little shrinking queen sitting on her gold throne with a stupid little crown, you know, it's just a metaphor for very powerful forces working behind her, you know. I mean, royalty is, you know, any fool can sit on a tin can on the street and say I'm royalty. But there's only one royalty in the world, that's London. Okay, and in that sense, the real royalty, you know. But it's not. It's just it's a gigantic financial cartel working from behind the scenes, and in that sense, it's it's more than demonstrated to people who understand how the world works.
But to make things sure, that's
yes.
Thank you very much. When you say that they want to destroy the world economy to avoid losing the power.
No, they want to destroy the world economy because we're living on a planet Earth with limited natural resources. So
they want to save the world.
No, they want to save themselves, not the world. So they want to make sure that they kill us so they can save natural resources, because when you have so much water, so much natural gas, so much oil, so much of everything, and we are almost 7 billion people, and the next plateau up is 10 billion people. All right, so 10 billion people on the planet just eat up all the natural resources a lot quicker.
But the easiest way to kill people is to start a war.
No, that's actually the most expensive way, because in the 20th century, wars only killed 193 million people, and it's very, very expensive. I can tell you from personal experience that a bullet costs about $5.
So how do you think they're going to do it?
Well, it's much easier just starving people to death, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. So, for example, all these people talking about, FEMA concentration camps being built in America to house all these millions. It doesn't make any sense, because if you're gonna put people in concentration camp, you have to give them food. You understand what I'm saying? Which is like, all this stupid logic of all these stupid conspiracy theories just falls apart. You don't put people in a concentration camp if you're not going to feed them, and you're not going to put millions of people because it's expensive to feed them. So it doesn't make any sense.
So they're going to crash the economy for everybody to stop?
Well, they're destroying the world economy, because without progress, without development, you see, the only energy that can actually save the world is nuclear energy. You see, it's a question of immortality. You see, these are higher kind of moral questions that go far beyond what we're talking about here, because again, this is really not important. Why are we here? What is the objective of governments to the people? What is our objective, the role and responsibility to future generations? It's to ensure the survival of the human species. And the only way we can do this, now to 500,000 years from now, is to discover, outer space. We have to go to the moon. We have to go to the moon. We have to go to Mars. We have to colonize other planets, because there's just too many people. And the only way you can do this, is through human mind. See, people think that money makes the world go around. You've heard the phrase "money they lead," right? But money has no intrinsic value. It doesn't make the world go around. It's the human mind makes the world go around. In that sense, the difference between us and animals, although a lot of people in the world look like animals and they act like animals, but the real difference between us and animals is our ability to discover universal physical principles of nature, which improves the lives of people per square kilometer of space over nature. And that's what the circles around Gottfried Leibniz, the discoverer of calculus, realized 250 years ago. that progress and development is directly proportional to population density. So the more we develop as nation states, the more we're going to have, and the more of us we're going to have. And people like Rockefeller Company, they don't want this, which is why they're destroying the economy, and which is why they're cutting progress. Which is, again, it's all, you know, physically logical. You know, if you take the physical space-time, you know, element. But again, from an intellectual point of view, not from a freaky, you know, conspiracy, crazy point of view.
Okay. Thank you. I think there's a lot of people that want to interview you.
Oh God.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kiss. I gotta do an interview. Yeah.